ultimately, James Cameron filmed The Abyss there in the country, in the back country of South Carolina. The Abyss was filmed. I'm the type of person that, like, if somebody unfollows me, I'm stressed out, so it's like I don't need, I don't
That's a
need
lot of
that, right?
pressure.
I just like,
Yeah.
I'm like, why don't you like me,
Yeah.
So, and
Sure.
I just have this expectation that every hotel or Airbnb should have a hair dryer in it, because I don't understand makeup,
Right.
right? So I hate when I have to do it myself.
Influencer Insight shares the battles, stories, successes of models, influencers, and entrepreneurs as they find the balance of being influential leaders today while creating long-lasting impact for the future.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another session of Influencer Insights, where I have Billy Joseph Jr. from South Carolina. Did I say North
That's
Carolina?
right. That is
There we
correct.
go.
Yes, I'm very close to North Carolina, though.
Yeah.
I'm just a little south of Charlotte, and just a couple hours from Atlanta. So this is the Greenville Spartanburg area, and so yeah, just right here in the middle of some good film and television industry, actually.
No kidding. Coming from my part of the world, and it's just because of a distance thing more than anything. I'm not sure if it strikes me as much when I think of that part of the world as being such a film uh, heavy area, but kind of getting to know you online. Billy and I met a couple of years ago on Instagram, and so we've kind of been pen pals, I guess, so to speak, through that, and learned a lot about kind of just the industry and where he's at just from watching him on there. So it's good to have you here, sir, and sharing your story and your knowledge and some of the journey that you've been on. So
Thanks so much for having me. I'm excited.
so tell us, did you grow up in that part of the world? What got you into acting and modeling as you're growing up? Is it just something you decided to do, or was it something always a passion of yours? Or
Right. I think it was always kind of there. You try to pinpoint that moment, but yeah. So I grew up in upstate South Carolina. So the area where I grew up, I think as a kid, my friends, neighbors, which for me was mostly my cousins,
cool.
my dad had 14 brothers and sisters, and they all, for the most part, with the exception of just a few, were just within a couple of miles of each other. So I honestly don't know if I had any friends. I just had cousins.
Just cousins.
Right. But so
Cool.
but we grew up together, as these little wild barefoot, country kids.
Nice.
And I can remember us acting out our favorite movies, which was the typical Wizard of Oz, and those types. So we had even a game we would play where, as my dad would mow the lawn, and we would be behind him. That was the yellow brick road, and somebody would be the scarecrow, someone would be the Tin Man, someone would be the cowardly lion, someone would be um, the whiz, right? So the wizard. And so we would kind of act out scenes as we went around the yard and play. And I remember just
Models, join us on Facebook in our group where we've got all kinds of support and training you need to become a better model today. Check the link in the description.
having that mindset of always feeling like you were in a movie. What is the movie that was out in the 90s? I can't think of this movie. It was a very popular movie, but the guy grew up on a movie set. So he didn't know until he was an adult that he wasn't in a movie. And so I kind of had that feeling, I think, as I remember growing up, just often thinking, is this
The way
all
it
a
is.
movie, like going around me? All of this is just a movie happening around me. And so I loved film and television. And I think one thing that kind of piqued my interest was I lived out in the country. I didn't live in a town at all, but in the county that I lived in, there had been the construction of this nuclear power plant that was underway,
That's pretty cool.
and they didn't. And that was during. I'm not saying years because I'm not saying how old I am.
Whoa.
But right. So I was 3 months old when all this happened.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. That is
But
really
yeah,
first.
so the power plant never opened. The power company closed down. They never actually finished the building project. But in that
Really?
process, they had constructed a highway across my grandfather's farm, which was most of my, friends and family, neighbors'
Sure.
property, as well as a railroad line that ran right behind our house. And so, being the Goonies that we were, we were always on adventures on that railroad line. But ultimately, James Cameron filmed The Abyss there.
Oh,
And it
really?
was so in the country, in the back country of South Carolina, The Abyss was filmed.
Is that
And
right?
so, yes, it was. They flooded the what would have been the cooling towers of the nuclear power plant that never went into operation. They flooded. They built the sets and filled those with water, and they
Wow.
did the filming. So, if you ever want to watch just like some insane behind the scenes of filming, that is a film to look at. All of the I would say, a lot, I shouldn't say all, but a lot of the technology that was then used in Titanic and Avatar and all these other projects were developed when they were filming The Abyss. And so
Interesting.
we knew that was happening. And crew would have to stop at our house out in the country and ask for directions because they would get lost when they were trying to find the set out. And so it was just so exciting, for us as kids to have that happening around us and
No
Hollywood
kidding.
come to town like that. So it was a major production, and so
Yeah,
that also piqued, I think, my interest in just how film works as far as from
right.
a production standpoint.
So
Um,
up to that point, because it's fairly rural the way you're describing it in your
Absolutely,
part. Yeah,
yes.
okay. Yeah. So me too. I totally get that. If somebody with a film crew showed up where I'm from, that would have been something different, just totally out of the blue. But is that fairly? Was it common then, or is it common now to have anything like that going on around there, or is it?
Interestingly, our little town had several films shot in it.
Okay,
None on
that
the
one.
scale of The Abyss. And and bringing someone like Ed Harris to live in town for a few months. So so definitely that was a huge deal. But there have been other films shot in the area over the years. Not, but again, nothing like that. And so it was very, again, I was all caught up in the Hollywood of it. That stuck with me, I think, throughout life. So when I was a little older, I did have an aunt, Elaine, who she owned a modeling company. She always wanted me to model for her, and I
Cool.
was so shy and so scared, timid. I was not a very social kid, and definitely not teenager. Awkward, awful teenage years, and so I never would do it, but she always wanted me to,
Come
and
on, Liz.
so yeah, and so there was that little bit of drive, and so when I was in college, and I had some more self esteem by the time I grew up, or well, they say had your glow up, right? So
Yeah.
I glowed up in college, and did start doing some print modeling
Okay.
and so just a few projects here and there, but enough to get me hooked and interested. And at the same time, I worked at Medieval Times, so as I ended up going to school for a very short time at Myrtle Beach, and at the Coastal Carolina University down there near Myrtle Beach, and so there's a Medieval Times dinner theater there, and so I worked at that dinner theater,
Did you
and
get to ride the horses, or did you?
those guys, okay, to
They're
begin,
nuts. Like,
the guys who do that, the guys who are the knights, man, I mean, they're like
yeah.
8.5 foot tall to start with, and then they wear 3 foot lifts.
Holy smoke.
And I was like 90 pounds. So,
Not my thing.
so
Yeah.
yeah, but I got to run. My main job was to sell roses to all the ladies, and or to the
Ooh,
men
tough
who were
job.
to the men to try to like
Yeah.
make them buy their girl a rose. And then I did have a scene. I did have a scene that I would play every night,
Oh,
at the end of
cool.
the show where I had to carry my flag out on the, for the show. And I managed the Dungeon Museum that costs you another $20 a tour, right? After you'd already paid $80 to get in.
Yeah, yeah,
So that was kind of my introduction in that capacity. So I continued to have that interest, and that was a creative outlet for me. And I think
sure.
that while I didn't jump in totally like with both feet ever until more recently, that interest was always there. And so I worked for museums, living history stuff, did dinner theater, worked on dinner theater projects and those types of things through the years, before really jumping in more heavily to modeling and
Sure.
acting.
So along this way, because obviously that you guys got to pay bills somewhere down the line too. Did the
Yes.
dinner theater stuff do that, or did you have another career in between? Or
I worked everywhere. I have worked everywhere in the world. But yes, so I taught school for, forever,
oh, really? Okay.
and continue to do that. And I also worked for a museum as a curator, which I've done for the last 20 years also.
Oh, wow. So you've got lots of realm in that
And
department.
in the meantime, waiting tables, bartending,
Yeah.
working at Tractor Supply or whatever, whatever you needed to do
Yeah.
to get by.
No, good for you. I'm
I've
sure
never been afraid of work, so that's
yeah. Well, I think that's a big part of anything in the industry. It's not just that. I mean, there's a level of resiliency you just got to plow through to get there, but also just our drive that somebody asks you to show up, you get it done too, right? So big piece. So
that's right.
that probably makes an interesting teaching session when you get to draw from that experience for students as well, though, too. Sure.
Yeah, I don't let those blend together too much. I started teaching online virtually about 15 years ago, so long before COVID.
Wow.
And, so it's not really, there's not an overlap really there so much. For me, there is, because I have that creative mindset already. So I think it does help me when it comes to lesson planning
Yeah.
and teaching, but I don't bring my acting career into conversations. Right?
Sure. Sure. Kind of cool that you get to balance some of those different skills in life, though, and see some different perspectives that way too, right? So
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
what about some of the work have you done? How much you want to share about things that you've been able to, projects you've been working on that have been cool in the last 5 or 10 years, or because you obviously been
Yeah,
doing a little bit all the way through, right? So
right, right. Wow, man. I mean, there's just been, you're in this industry, so you understand that you get a lot of pressure sometimes to people saying, all right, you got to figure out what it is you want to do, right? Who do you want
sure.
to be? Are you going to be a supporting actor? You want to be a leading man? Do you want to, be a lifestyle model, a commercial model, a fashion model?
Yep.
And so because it was never really my primary like source of income, I never really let that pressure me to stop, to like pigeonhole myself into one
Or the
area
other.
or not. But and I like doing a lot of different things. So it's like even if it were my full-time job, I feel like I still would want to do different things. And if you know me enough throughout my life, that's how I've always been anyway. I'm still like that. I'm like, all right, I'm at this age and I still don't know what I want to be when I grow up.
Yeah.
Right.
Join the
So
club.
I feel like, I'm like, yeah, I want to try that. And like, I want to be a writer. I want to be an actor. I want to be a model. I want to be a teacher. I want to be,
Yeah.
so yeah, I have that ADHD approach, I guess, to
Sure.
career.
Sure.
But I think that as far as like recent projects go, I can think of commercial projects that I really love. Like I love to do commercial work, and I've been in some fun projects like Camping World ads and Camping World commercials, and
Cool.
those are always fun, and they treat you so good on set, and so so I've loved
Do you
doing
literally
those
have to go
projects.
camping on those, or like do they force you into living the experience in those Camping World ones, or do they?
You get a camper for your trailer,
Oh, okay,
right?
that's pretty close. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, so I've not done an overnight shoot, but I guess you would because the crew does.
I
The
guess. Yeah.
crew stay in the campers. Yeah.
Okay.
So
Yeah. Full on.
yeah, so they didn't pay me to say that, by the way. I will be sending them a link though and say, all right, the next time.
Yeah. Post the video.
Affiliate, like but an affiliate
Affiliate
link.
link. Yeah.
Right. But yeah, so I think one thing that, I don't really have it is we mentioned affiliate link. You know,
Hmm.
so one thing that I don't really necessarily have a desire for is like to be like a straight up social media influencer, right?
Sure.
Because I'm the type of person that like if somebody unfollows me, I'm stressed out, you know. So it's like I
That's
don't need, you know, I don't
a
need
lot of
that, right?
pressure.
I just like,
Yeah.
you know, I'm like, why don't you like me, you know?
Yeah.
So I don't really need the pressure of trying to keep 50,000 followers happy, you know.
No
So
kidding.
with that said, you know, it's not that I don't do social media. I do. I never had it actually.
Quite
I
well,
never
actually. So
had it until a few years ago. Yeah. I was very, very late to the game with any social media.
COVID kind of
Um,
pushed us all towards that, I think. So for
totally,
sure. Yeah.
totally. And in this industry, it's kind of a necessary part of it, right? So, I mean, it's kind of, you know, I've met so many people like yourself and
Sure.
people in the industry, been given, you know, booked jobs through Instagram or, you know, get cast on something that was posted on Facebook. So it's a little bit of a necessity in that regard.
Yeah.
But I love doing print work. So I continue to do that. I love acting. Obviously, I was really coming back into the industry more from a print standpoint.
Sure.
But print has changed through the years. There's not really print anymore, right? I mean,
No.
it's all there's always a little bit of video and tied in with that. And so and then booked a role in a feature film. Really, my first acting role outside of doing living history stuff and theater stuff was the lead in a short film that was dealing with a men's mental health issue, and so it was very challenging
Yes.
for so many reasons because I did have to go there as far as the mental health issue was concerned, PTSD it was specifically about, and but also really hone some acting skills in that process and learn words, you know,
Yeah.
learn what's going on set. You know, it's like because I had done commercial work and it's just different. It's
Right.
totally different, right? So
Right.
it's and so that, you know, I remember you know being on set and them using terms and me running to my phone, you know, in the restroom and googling what the heck that meant. You know, I'm like trying to figure out what this word was that they're
Yeah.
saying. You know, and it wasn't necessarily even something that related to me specifically, but
Sure.
you know, it was words that they kept saying, like striking. You know, I'm like, oh, why do they keep saying that? You know, because they're about to
Right.
turn all the lights on. You know? So yeah, so you know, it was that's a learning experience for me. But yeah, as far as specific projects go, I've there's very few that I can look back on, and I've got I don't know 20 or 30 IMDb credits at this point, and that I can really say I didn't enjoy some aspect of it.
Cool.
There's some that I definitely enjoyed more than others. I feel like I pick roles that you know that I just naturally gravitate towards, and a lot of those are dealing with mental health issues.
Sure.
But at the same time, I've got to do some really fun things like fight zombies, right?
Right.
And that's so fun and cool. And you know, I'm not even a big, I'm not like a, I don't, I'm not a gun owner. You know, it's like you know, if you want to, that's your business. But it's like, um, you know, I have to learn those things. You know, you may have saw a post this week where I was at the boxing gym. It's because I have a scene coming up in a film where I have a boxing scene, and it's probably going to last 3 seconds in the
Yeah.
film. But you know, I really was like, I want to make sure I look decent for that, right? I
Right.
want to look like I want to look like I know what I'm doing.
Yep.
And so it gives you that opportunity to learn new things that you might not otherwise. Like if I didn't get that role, I probably wouldn't take the time because I don't have the time to go
Yeah. Yeah.
and go
Be a
to the boxing
boxer.
gym. Right. And so to me, that's a really fulfilling part of it. You know, it's the experiences to get to travel and meet into different places. And
Sure.
even with commercial shoots, like I've stayed in crazy resorts that I could never afford.
Right.
Right. So,
Right.
you know, it's like, oh, wow, this is awesome, you know,
Yeah.
and so it's just it's an opportunity to experience those things.
What's the furthest you've gotten travel so far? Is it lots of, is it flying all over the world or is it pretty well able to do it kind of close to home driving distance, or
Because I mean, I have traveled internationally, but
sure
not necessarily for,
this.
for acting jobs
Yep.
or modeling work. So I would say, as far as acting goes, for me, like the furthest would be LA. So I mean,
Okay.
going to LA and filming
Across
out
the
there
country
would be
though.
furthest if we were calculating it by mileage. Um, I would say I live because I am in the location I am. There are tons of productions in the Carolinas, and there's more productions in Atlanta than there is in LA, right? So that's what they say anyway. I mean, somebody from LA is about to message me, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah. You're out of
yeah,
luck now. Yeah.
but yeah, we hear that all. At least is on par with,
Yeah.
there's just there's major what we call Hollywood productions that are happening all the time, and not just Atlanta, but in our entire region. So because of that, I can be on set in Atlanta in 3 hours, right? So I can hit just about anywhere in the Carolinas in 3 to 4 hours.
Okay.
So there's lots of opportunities in our area, whether that's commercial or or um, or television or film.
Sure. That's kind of, yeah, an advantage that not everybody does being so centralized too, right? So I mean, if you've got those opportunities to boom, 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 I mean, that take advantage of it as much as you can. So
Right. No, I mean, I love to travel, but at the same time, I do work a full time job that has to take priority, right? So, and and I have a family, so I don't try to. Um, I have to navigate that from a calendar standpoint, and from
yeah,
a real life standpoint.
how do you balance that full time job thing and pursuing acting and then being a dad and husband and all those things on side of that too?
Sure. Well, one thing that has really allowed me to get back into this industry more fully is the fact that my kids are older now, right? So I have a
Sure.
almost an 18-year-old and a 20-year-old, and so these they're on their own, they're doing their own thing. So I don't really have to Uber them to everything like I did,
Yeah.
a few years ago.
Yeah.
And so that does allow more freedom as far as things I get to do. And so I just have to I have to, I just have to work it out really per project. And so I've really been blessed. And a lot of indie projects, you have indie crew, and those indie crew also have to work other jobs in order to pay the bills. So a lot of those indie projects end up happening on weekends. So, we can shoot on the weekends. I've had projects that I was, chosen for, and we were able to work it out where I could shoot in the evenings or on the weekends or on the holidays or during the summer. And so, and I just have to, kind of take it up on a per case basis like that.
Sure.
Honestly, the productions that I've worked for have always been so willing to understand that,
That's
which
crazy.
has been
Yeah.
that's been a real blessing for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah. And I mean, I think a lot of people would do that though, but it's also holding your own personal accountability to make sure you can budget that time and keep yourself organized enough, right? So there's probably a whole level of planning in the background that you have to be kind of responsible for that is its own
It
thing,
is
right? So
it's insane. Yes. I use a paper calendar and a pencil with an eraser. Like pencils with
wow,
eraser,
high
that's my
tech.
favorite thing. Yes. And so and it gets erased a lot, so
Yeah,
even to like today, for example, I must have had I think I had a lot of calls about scheduling, and yeah, like I had several things that got shifted, that got moved to a different date, and you just sometimes you have to drop projects, right? I mean,
right.
I have the problem of not wanting to say no to something that I worked so hard to audition for, right, or submit
Totally.
for. So, but I've had to. But yeah, so I have to check myself from a physical and mental and emotional standpoint. I don't always do the best job of that because I can overbook myself.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Just because I didn't want to say no to something, and then I'm exhausted, and so that or in a state where yeah, you just have to be careful because you want to put the best you want to do your best work, but if you're too tired to do that, then you really can't.
Totally. Something that kind of strikes me a little bit is I mean, you've been in the industry for a few years, so that kind of probably helps a little bit. But somebody starting out, and in the beginning when you're trying to get into this, you're like, I don't know how many castings I need to go to, or how many courses I need to, or what practice I need to be doing. But to get to a level where you're able to kind of have that flexibility, or to be able to say, hey, can you guys work with me? Obviously, they want you to be in that project. So, what are some things that have maybe helped you get to that place that people, I don't know if they trust you, or if you've got your skill set building up? What's helped you along the way that way?
Well, I would say, and I see this. It sounds like I'm saying this from a meme or something. Probably am, but it's just like people they want if they enjoyed working with you, then they want to work with you. So, there's more than a few, especially there's more than a few projects, whether it's commercial or film, that I have worked with the same people on,
Mm,
and then didn't have to go through the same process as the first time I did. And I did, I'm not here to toot my own horn on that regard, but I think I just try to be respectful of the people that I work with, and do the best job that I can do for them. And they in turn have respect for that usually, and so and I've had to learn that I'm also not the best fit for every role.
right.
We all have an image of ourselves that, we have this idea of what we are and how
Yeah.
we look and how we sound, and so that's not necessarily what other people see me and see. And I actually uh, had a director in LA who said this to me, and he was asking about some particular photos that I was submitting, and I made a comment on the photos. I was like, I don't really like that one. I was like, because da da da, I look this way, or don't I look
Sure.
bad here? I
Sure.
look. He's like, stop right now. He's like, none of that's for you to decide.
Yeah.
He's like, that's for me to decide. And he said, I'm the one who's casting, and I know what I'm looking for, and if I like the way it looks, then that's all that matters. You just have to get it. It's like, because that's how you look.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
Like it or
okay, right,
not.
like it or not.
Yeah.
And so I think just being able to be on time. It's really some basics. It's like be on time for a set. Don't be a jerk.
Yeah.
Know your line. Know your lines.
Right.
Be prepared. Be there on time. Be respectful. You don't get in everybody's way. Don't be, some diva on set. Diva actors, male or female. Is there a male term for divas? I think male
Everybody's a
actors can
queen when
also
you're
be
like that,
divas.
so
Yeah, that's right. So yeah, so the I think when with that, that's on television. It's like
yeah.
nobody really wants to work with that person,
Right.
right? So even on
Yep.
television, usually. So
Surprise,
yeah,
surprise.
so nobody wants to work with that person. So don't be that person. You don't have this. You don't have to act like an actor, right?
Right.
And come in and be like better than everybody.
Right.
That's one thing. It's like I did not grow up in a setting where I felt like I was above anyone else. And so I still don't think that. If anything else, I put myself probably in the opposite end of that spectrum. And so I think that's a wise thing to do on set, is to not go in there thinking you're better than anyone.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, you may come across someone who you can offer advice to, and in that case, you should.
Right.
I think that you have a responsibility to do that. But yeah, you don't come in like as a know-it-all, and people do, but then they leave that reputation too. So
That's right.
um,
And
I
word
think
gets around
that's that.
fast.
Yeah, I mean, so I think that's helped me as far just I think it sounds very egotistical to say that's my person.
Nope.
It's like contrary to what I'm trying to say, but I think that's one of the reasons I might get asked to work with the same people again. And
Yeah.
so And you do get referrals, like I got a job this week because someone referred me from another project, to another to an upcoming project, and they don't know me at all, but it was through the referral from someone else.
Right.
And so yeah, so if you go in and you do a good job, then that's likely, that's more likely to happen. It doesn't mean it will always happen, but it's more likely to happen.
Yeah. Possibility. Yeah. It's surprising the contacts you'll run into when you're whether it's a shoot or probably on a set, right? Whatever. Like, you never know who might be there too, right? I was in New York a couple weeks ago and like ran into some people from Tokyo, and they're like, "Hey, you should come out for a couple of weeks or whatever." Like, I don't know if that's going to happen or not, but like, how do you meet those people? And if you're, like you say, a jerk or somebody that nobody wants to talk to, they probably find the next guy to go bug too, right? So
That's right. That's
yeah,
right. Yeah,
yeah,
they're not inviting the jerk to Tokyo. No.
yeah.
So-
Too bad for you. Yeah.
right.
Have you ever been on a set or worked at a project where you're like, you thought it was a good thing, but then all of a sudden you're like, nah, this ain't for me, or maybe the fit didn't go very good afterwards, or
Absolutely. Yes. I'm not here to badmouth
no, for sure.
anyone. And I took the role. I had and I got there. The production wasn't what I expected.
Sure.
Wasn't happy at all. I'm not happy with the end product, but
Sure.
I did my job. I did my job and left, and I would never like,
Do that again.
I just know that, yeah, I know I wouldn't do that again, and
Yeah.
like internally, I would advise if someone asked me, I would advise them, about that situation, but
Sure.
I'm not someone who would go on Facebook and start saying don't ever work with this
Of
director,
course
because
not.
it could have just been that day and that project, right?
You never
So
know.
it's like I'm a very forgiving person, so but
That's a good outlook.
yeah, but I've definitely had that experience for sure.
Does that, not to get into those details, but just leading up to that experience, like, is there something looking back now that you would do differently to prepare yourself, or things that you maybe check now more than you would have then, or
Absolutely, I would, and I have said this: ask more questions. Ask
sure.
more questions. Ask more questions about if it's going to be an outdoor shoot, do you have blankets? It's like,
Right.
so this
Yeah.
that's just a silly example, but
Sure. A
you
real
just
one, though, if you're freezing.
all of those questions, you need to think about ahead of time, like
Yeah.
what's it going to be like on set?
Right.
What is your expectation of me? And think about what you expect from them. And if they're not able to provide that, then maybe it's not the best job to take.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fair. If they can't answer the questions beforehand and you're asking legit ones, I mean, what's to come, right, in that case? So
Exactly.
what about I think about, in modeling, we usually try and carry a model bag, which has got a whole bunch of random things that you may or may not need on a shoot. Is there the same sort of planning and goes into acting and that kind of thing, that you bring certain things that you just prepare yourself ahead of time to be on a set for? Or?
Yes, and for modeling shoots too, but and commercial work as well. But yes, I have a makeup bag.
Yeah, everybody's like,
And
whoa.
I have a dozen travel hair dryers.
Okay. Typical male attire, right? Like,
This is so funny because I recently got a haircut. It was unexpected. I did not expect as much to come off as came off. And so, but my hair was a little, if you've watched my Instagram, so
Sure.
my hair was a little longer
Right.
previously,
Yep.
up until a few weeks ago. And so, it's funny because it's like I stay in a lot of places, and
Sure.
I just have this expectation that every hotel or Airbnb should have a hair dryer in it. And apparently that's not the case.
Not always the case.
And sometimes you might get put up in a place that doesn't have one.
Right.
So I've been out of town so many times that I had to go buy a travel hair dryer.
You're fully
Or
stocked
call
then
the
anyway.
yeah. I've had some Airbnb. Usually with the Airbnbs, I've asked like call the owner, and I've had a couple who actually like went and bought a hair dryer and
Oh,
brought
really?
it to yes.
Bro, I need a hair dryer. Where is
So that
it?
was they got 5 stars. Yes.
Yeah. Top line rating.
Right.
Well,
But yeah, I definitely I always overpack, and sometimes sometimes you're responsible for your own wardrobe. Not
yes.
always,
Yeah,
you're not always, but a lot of times, and especially on indie film projects, almost always. And
probably
so
right. Yeah.
yeah, so I always have too many clothes and more makeup than any man should have in his bag.
So I'm kind of a little curious to dive into that just for a second, but your kids being 18 and 20-ish, I mean, did they ever give dad a hard time about all that stuff, or is it just normal to them?
It was kind of, awkward maybe at first, but they've been encouraging to me all the way through. So,
Cool.
yeah, it's more of a, unless it's a scene, that calls for heavy makeup.
Yes.
Maybe it's,
Yeah.
so I have come home, with like, because I was, for example, again, fighting zombies or something, so I
Right.
had blood, splattered
Yeah.
all over my face and stuff. So
Got
that,
some gore.
that kind of stepped back a little bit, especially the guy at the gas station. They, they're like, really, you just came in here to get a protein drink and you're covered in blood.
Yeah. Where were you and where are you
Right.
going, eh?
Where have
Like,
you been? It's like,
just need a Red
and
Bull, man.
so,
Like,
yeah, that's it. I just need to get home. So, and so, yeah, but most of the time it's a very mild makeup that I'm having to wear, right?
for
So,
sure.
hopefully, I've had, oh man, this is the worst thing. Like, I had I was filming in LA recently,
Okay.
and I had a photo shoot also in LA, and it was it was after the photo shoot was after the film shoot, but on the same day.
Okay.
So,
Busy.
but in the film, like I had two parts and I had to look different in two scenes. So one of them I had went out there with a heavy beard
Sure.
that I then had to shave for the other scenes. So I had rushed back to, we actually production got delayed and shifted around because of the fires. And so we ended up
Right.
trying to do all of my scenes in one day. And so I rushed back to the hotel and shaved my face. And I mean, I took a chunk out of my cheekbone right here with a razor. I mean, I was just pouring blood out of my cheekbone. And I'm like,
Perfect for a modeling shoot.
right, I'm going to the photo shoot. Right. So,
Oh
um,
man.
there is, there's touch ups, that are out there, but you don't want to have to touch up a
No.
lot. When you touch up a lot, it shows, right? So it's
Yeah.
like, so yeah, so I had concealer, like a big glob of concealer on my face after I finally got the blood to stop.
It should be fine.
But that's why you have it, right? So
Yeah.
it's like, do you have
100%.
have you ever heard of the Nick stick? It looks
Uh,
like chapstick.
yes, 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 yeah, yeah.
Nick stick is in that bag for when you cut yourself shaving, you need it to stop quickly. Concealer is in that bag, and I just keep like it's like lotion. It's like a lotion, but it's got a little tint to it.
Oh, okay.
So it's not like wearing makeup, and
Right.
it's a little
Not
it's
tanning, but
like
close.
yeah, it's not tan. It's not even tanning. Like it matches your skin tone. But
Yep,
it's
yep.
dang man, I can't think of the name of it because I don't understand makeup.
Right.
Right. So I hate when I have to do it myself. It's so much better when somebody else does your hair and makeup.
Yeah.
And it looks better too.
Perfect that way, right? And you don't have to worry about it. So I'm sure there's all kinds of moments like that too, where you're just like, aha, I got to get someplace, and things just don't go the way they're supposed to either. So, but,
Well, you're in a rut. You're like, if I would have just stopped and breathed and shaved like a normal human, right?
right,
Instead of trying to do it, trying to like,
right.
like, okay, yeah, it's a
I
razor.
this is a totally sideline thing, but church on Sundays for us, I'm like, I gotta shave Saturday night or guaranteed Sunday morning. That's the first thing I do. It's the wrong way, then always
That's
in a
right.
rush. So yeah,
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to shift the gears a little bit, kind of back into that. I know you talked a little bit about the mental health and some of the film work and stuff you've done. Uh, how about those things in your own personal life? Have you experienced that? I know there's a lot of pressure dealing with all of the constraints and stuff that you've done and trying to make your career go and being a family person. What are some of those mental health things that have affected you, and how have you managed with that?
And I can't blame really any career choice on every mental health issue, but
Sure.
so I think as far as me personally, as someone who had battled, depression a lot through the
Hmm.
years and really did that on my own, without ever trying to get help for that. And would because I don't know, it's in my situation, I would be work alone a lot. Um, so definitely, I think just dealing with that, and then the overthinking that goes along with that. I mentioned the fact that, like I'm the person who would like wonder why someone stopped following me on social
Yes.
media. I'm joked
Yeah.
about that, but at the same time, as
Can be
someone who can
bothersome.
really start to overthink things, you start to go down that rabbit hole of they
Sure.
don't like me, why don't they like me, you get into that. And so that's something that I've dealt a lot with. And so here in this setting, you're putting yourself out for criticism, right? So I mean, it's
Totally.
not everyone is going to like you, and some people comment on it, right?
Well, some people in the
And
industry are
so
pretty just blunt too, right? They're like, "That wasn't very good."
well,
Like,
well,
right?
I mean, it is the industry, and
Yeah,
they are blunt, and it probably wasn't very good,
that's right.
and so they don't have time to baby you and
That's right.
sugarcoat it, and so in addition, it's like, like for the last 3 weeks, I probably had at least eight, maybe 10 auditions, right?
Okay.
I had one callback, right? So it's like applying for a job. It's
Yeah,
like applying
and
for
nobody
multiple
phones.
jobs, and you never hear back, right? You never hear back. And most of the time, even with auditions, you never hear back with
Right.
self tapes. Now, if you do live auditions, then that's different. You get some sort of feedback just from the people who are looking at you. You can kind of walk away and say, yeah, I really blew that.
Right.
But most auditioning is done through self tapes for the first step
Sure.
these days, since COVID especially.
Right. Right.
And so you don't always get a response at all.
Yeah.
Most of the time you hear nothing back. And that was really, really hard on me at first.
Yeah. No kidding.
I kept a spreadsheet of every audition and which ones I didn't get, and which ones I did get. And it was just like,
Oh,
oh, I got to stop doing this because
yeah.
you're not getting most of these, sir.
Right.
So it's, and so what you have to get past that, but it could be very detrimental from a mental health standpoint.
Right.
But that can happen to anyone in any career area, right? So I
Totally.
think for it's not that I never dealt with that in any of my other capacities, whether that's whatever job it was, or even in personal life.
Sure.
So I think for me, and maybe getting into answering a question you haven't even asked yet, but um, really having someone to talk to about that, and openly, it's even hard to say it right now. It's weird,
Yeah.
right? It's
Totally.
yeah, I go to a therapist, right? So I mean, and
Sure.
it's like I'm whispering it right now,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
I think that has been very helpful for me in a lot of ways.
Good.
I think we tend to, and for men especially, um, we think of traditionally as as women have friends that they talk to all the time, right?
Very
And
open. Yeah.
guys don't necessarily do that, and
That's
that's
right.
very general. I'm not saying
Absolutely.
that's the case for everyone. It's a very generalized statement,
That's right.
it's there's a truth to it. And so um, it's not like you always can go to your buddy, even though he's your buddy, and it may be helpful for you to go play golf or hang
Yeah.
out and have a beer or whatever.
Yeah.
It's not that you can say to him, these things are going through my mind, right? And
Yeah.
so the to have to have that therapist that you can go open up to about things that you wouldn't tell your friends or you
Yeah.
don't want to talk to your family about even is that's it's helpful.
Good.
Say it doesn't necessarily solve everything, and you still have down days and hard days, and everybody has that. But when you're dealing with like certain mental health issues, those it can be exacerbated, right? So
That's right.
and you can find yourself in a position where you're inoperable,
Yes.
and
Don't know how
we
to get
see
out.
that throughout our society. So I think one thing that has everybody says, oh, I'm not a celebrity by any means, but they say, what's your cause, right? What's your cause?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I feel like I kind of fell into that naturally, and I've been able again to play multiple roles that have brought some attention to that issue, whether it
Hmm.
be and I can find that in every role really,
Sure.
which is fun might not be the right word, but
Yeah.
it's intriguing to me that I can play a serial killer
Yeah.
and see how that is actually drawing attention to mental health issues, right?
Right.
But it does. I got to play like identical twin brothers, which is a dream role for someone, and so and they both were pretty bad off mentally, and so
Everybody's
and
got problems.
so but yeah, so even though it was a thriller, it still was dealing with it was the trauma that that they had experienced as a kid that caused this, right? So
Right.
it was, and so that's kind of become, I think, a thing that I gravitate towards as far as roles go. But really, again, finding where that fits into every role,
That's
even
right.
if whatever the role might turn out to be.
Yeah. Have you, since being in these projects and kind of, I mean, there's a certain level of energy that if that's kind of where your thoughts going, that people are going to kind of perceive. Have you had people reach out to you and go, hey, maybe you help them along the way in their own journey and stuff like that as well too?
Absolutely. And what is probably more happened more with me, definitely, you get it from random strangers, whatever on social media who message you,
Yeah.
but, or make or comment on something. But I've seen it more so from other film professionals,
Okay.
people, crew, the
Right.
sound guy,
Right.
the lighting guy, when I have the sound guy who comes up to me afterwards and says, I was crying the whole time with you, it's like, so, and he, or, so that's a powerful thing,
Totally.
so, and I've had friendships develop out of that, where you just had that camaraderie, because you really would, you have productions where, crew really is separate from the talent.
Right.
I don't like to call that word. I mean, they're
Right.
talented.
But
But that's the word that's
yeah,
used, right? The
definition.
talent,
Yeah.
the actors are the talent, and so, but especially with indie projects, you just get close to the people you work with, right? So it's that's been fulfilling for me, rather
Sure.
than not just this helped me,
Right.
but to see that
Expand
these
upon it.
grown manly men, who
Yeah.
can feel comfortable talking about the same mental health issue.
Sure. Well, and coming from a male perspective, and I know this is maybe stereotyping again a little bit, but generally, men in our nature, we like to fix things right away. And sometimes the challenge with men and women is that men want to fix the women all the time, and the women just want to talk, right? But uh, for guys, sometimes that's the same thing we need to be doing too. Is just talking it out sometimes too. Right? It doesn't need to be solved in one day all the time, right? It's an ongoing peeling of the onion, so to speak, right? To deal with those. So
Absolutely. And it's the same, even like I think about it with raising my kids, it's like I don't necessarily think I've been the perfect father by any means, but I think one thing that I learned early on in dealing with them was, in dealing with them and surviving them,
yeah,
was sometimes to just shut up
Mm,
right? And let them talk and they'll solve their own problem usually,
right.
And I think that somehow, and so I can relate to how as an adult therapy is like that, right? So
Yes.
they really are they're letting you. Typically, they're not telling you what to do, right? I mean,
Right.
they're just letting you work it out
Yeah.
and giving you this safe space to have the conversation that you don't want to have out loud
Yeah.
with anyone else, including yourself.
Thinking back on younger self, would you recommend you get into therapy sooner, or is that something that you did early on yourself?
I did not do it early on by
Okay.
any means. No, and I respect the question, but I can't. I wouldn't have done it then.
Sure.
I mean, it's hard. If I had of, then I wouldn't be the person I am today. So I mean, it's through many challenges that's helped me evolve to who I am. And is that a perfect person or even decent? I don't know, right? But it makes you who you are, right? So there's if I had, then I might have been totally different. And
Totally.
sometimes I've even told my therapist, I was like, I've got this really emotional scene coming up. Don't fix me today.
Yeah.
I was like,
I need that.
like, all right, I need that. Right.
Yeah.
Totally.
Fair enough.
Um,
That's a good outlook though, because I think a lot of people go through life and they're just like they almost get down on themselves for what they haven't done or couldn't have changed sooner or whatever it is, right? But sometimes it's all
oh
part of our
yeah,
journey, right? So
we do. We all beat ourselves up, and I'm number one at that. And so that, um, yeah, I mean, we there's nothing you can change about it, right? I mean, it's like, and I have to tell myself that I'm not preaching to anyone here.
sure,
It's definitely a daily struggle for me too.
sure. No, that's it's encouraging to hear that though, and watching you do what you do, and to think that the Billy Joseph Jr. of the world is still struggling and human like the rest of us do. That's a pretty big thing. So
Oh yeah,
uh,
definitely struggling.
yeah, it's all good. We're all on the same team then. So
That's right.
um, what are some of the big kind of dreams, ambitions, goals for the next couple of years here?
Oh
Targets.
wow. I think I would like to. I mean, this sounds what
Let it
any
rip.
what any actor would say, right? I mean, it's like, but it's true. I would like to take on some bigger roles and some bigger projects. I think like a dream role for me would be a role that people recognized and remembered.
Yeah.
And not and that's not to diminish any project that I've been on. Like I said, I've loved 99% of them. And so but there are those very rare opportunities to get cast in a role that is very memorable to a
Yes.
lot of
Yeah.
people, right? So, and so may never happen, right? But I have that dream for sure, and
Cool.
so that's to still keep striving for that. Done very little comedy.
Oh,
And I think people tell me that I'm naturally a funny person,
you
so,
are.
and
So
I get referred to as Robin Williams all the time, as far as my looks go. But
that's a good.
but the so that's been a goal that I'm hoping to fulfill this year, actually. So I've
Nice.
been cast as the lead in a comedy feature film. So that's exciting for me. I'm so stoked about that and
Very
nervous and
cool.
scared because I was like, all right. I was like, usually I'm crying all the time.
Yeah.
And
Not
it's
gonna
like they're
laugh. Not
like, oh
gonna
yeah,
laugh. Yeah.
pick him. He can
Yeah.
cry. And I have some more action roles coming up too. So that's just the
Fun.
funnest because
Yeah.
I've never been an extremely athletic person. I've always liked tennis.
Okay.
And yeah, I still do. I like to play, but everybody just wants to play pickleball now. They don't want to learn tennis.
That's
So
right.
it's like,
Yeah. Yeah.
so I play
You're halfway
pickleball.
there.
Play pickleball. I love paddle boarding. Like paddle boarding is my thing. It's finally hitting the 70s here in the
Right.
Carolinas, so it's time to get back. on the paddleboard, just to draw some attention to a cause.
Yes. Yeah.
We were our whole region was so devastated from Hurricane
Yes.
Helene,
That's
and
right.
you still have so many people who are without homes and still struggling tremendously,
Yeah.
just nearby to us. And so, but we, you know, um, a lot of lakes were really closed for
Sure.
skiing and paddleboarding. So it's a blessing to see those starting to reopen. And certainly, who all's out there prays, sends good vibes,
Totally.
manifest whatever it is.
Yes.
Yeah, continue to keep our area and your thoughts and prayers for that, because it's a long recovery
Yeah.
happening, primarily in Western North Carolina, but all across the region. I mean, even my property here. I mean, I've still got trees down, and it'll be a while before all of it gets cleaned up. So,
Yeah.
but I
Such a
love to
shock.
paddleboard, and so I'd say maybe I'm athletic in that sense, but I've never been like football player, baseball player, basketball player, like sports
Right.
athlete. So having those action roles is exciting for me, because even though I like to paddleboard and I like to water ski, I like snow skiing, I like tennis. That's kind of my athletic side of
Sure.
things. And so, getting to wield a machete, against a group of zombies is exciting. And again, kind of talking like I was talking earlier, just getting to learn to do that, because really, like when I was doing when I'm like going to the boxing lessons, I'm not just learning to punch the heavy bag for this film. I've got to learn to punch the bag in a way that looks good on camera.
Right. It's technique,
And
right?
when we're doing a fight scene, you're not learning to punch someone in the face. You're learning to not punch someone in the face, right? I
Right.
mean, you're learning, and so there's a whole technique involved, and it's just fun.
Yeah.
It's the fun part of it.
Totally. No, there's and so many things to learn and see yet in the years ahead too. So
Yeah, and so really, like getting more of those type roles, I think would be a definite goal of mine.
cool.
Do more of
No,
that.
looking forward to seeing it. How do people that aren't following you follow you or get a hold of you if they want to put you in a role or whatever? What's the best way to get in touch with you?
Yeah, so my website is billyjosephjr.com. And that is the easiest way to get to all of my different links, because if you go there, you can get to Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube.
Sure.
I'm not really, I don't put a lot on TikTok, but I have one. I don't put a
You're
lot
not
on,
dancing yet, or what?
sorry world, sorry world. Like everybody seems to love it,
They might
but
ban it yet anyway. Who knows?
I kind of had to limit like which ones I'm
Focused
really
on.
on, right? And so I've learned, like in this career area, like the two most powerful ones for me are Instagram and Facebook.
Sure.
In Instagram more than Facebook, but there are tons of casting. I think one of the questions we might have been going to talk about was advice for others who might be
Hmm.
interested in acting. And that's one thing, you do get a lot of casting notices on Facebook, but one thing to be guarded of, is there are a lot of scams out there also.
True. True.
Modeling too,
Yeah.
so modeling, like, oh, we need these, we need this 18-year-olds, or we need, we need some models here in swimsuits. And I mean, it's not all that. Even sometimes a lot more than that, it's usually financial scams.
Yes.
So if you submit for a modeling job or an acting job and they ask you to pay something,
Right.
no.
Eh.
You're like, that's the first sign. Like,
Yeah.
if you
No.
sent them your checking account number, then
Yeah.
that's
No.
that's
No.
on
No. No.
you,
No.
right? So,
Yeah.
yeah, there's scams out there. But as far as like contacting me, again, it's like I use YouTube kind of as a repository for some videos that I remember to upload.
Sure.
It's like,
Right.
and so I look at it sometimes. I'm like, oh man, it's been months since I've looked at that. And then um, Instagram is probably my most up to date,
Sure.
and that's where you see the most photos or video clips or whatever, and like information about upcoming projects. And then, but my website is the easiest route to that.
Main homepage.
Now,
Cool.
But Instagram's Billy Joseph Jr. I think it's technically Billy underscore Joseph underscore Jr. But if you search the name, my face pops right up,
Perfect.
and so it's right there. And Facebook is Billy Joseph Jr. official, and website's billyjosephjr.com.
Sure. Good way to touch it. There's probably lots of things to go search out and check out your experience on your site anyway. People will want to do that. So
And then just remember, like most up to date is going to be Instagram. It's
perfect.
like sometimes I'm quite slow updating everything else.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Facebook lets you copy whatever's on Instagram.
Right.
So it just populates, right?
Post and post again. So
Right.
when you get the big roles, you'll have your own team sorting all that out for you in the background anyway. So that'll be a fun time too.
Right.
So
Right. That's right.
uh,
That would be wonderful, actually.
yeah, it'll
I'm up for that.
it'll come. Yeah.
Yes.
My favorite question as we close out is just if, when you end up in the big role, or the phone calls you can't keep track of them all because there's so many of them, and the things are just totally blown up for you. What would be something you'd want to share with the people around you, or something inspiring to give to people that are kind of still on the journey?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. First of all, no one really gets discovered at the soda fountain.
Good
Maybe
thought,
one
but
person, did. Yeah, so it's not easy.
mhm.
If I'm speaking to people who are seeking out the same journey,
Yeah,
it's not an easy industry at all. It's not easy physically. I work out religiously, not because I typically have like shirtless scenes or anything. It's like I'm usually working out because I'm going to be like squatted down for 4 hours straight, to get this shot, So, I mean, it's like there's a
level of
physical
physical.
component. So,
Yeah,
like, that's a big part of it is like
sure.
it's less about social content creators. Yes, they need to look perfect, if they're going to be,
Picture, picture,
promoting
picture.
their protein powder or their swim trunks or whatever,
Right.
and so and models, and a certain, models to for
Yeah.
certain products, then you do have a certain
Yeah.
physical look that you're having to go for. But acting in general, even and modeling, it's strenuous. It's not that strenuous because you're having to lift anything. It's
Right.
it's strenuous because you're having to hold your body in
Yes.
place, right?
Right.
So, and
Don't move.
so,
Okay.
yeah. I mean, you really, and so, and repeat.
Right.
So it's not easy mentally, and we've talked about that
Mhm.
already. It's
Yeah.
there's lots of critique. It's not always criticism, but as humans, we make it criticism, right? And
Right.
we turn it that way. We do that to ourselves. There's lots of critique out there from an emotional standpoint. There's lots of denial. I mean, there's lots of you don't get most of what you think you should get
Sure.
as far as roles go and jobs go, or even compensation. Usually,
Yeah. Yeah. No doubt.
you you have to do your homework. You have to and be prepared. I'm kind of thinking of things we talked about earlier, but yeah, definitely, like as far as getting into this industry, I there's the Quentin Tarantino, phrase that the way he learned film was on a film set, right? And I can relate to that for sure. It's like
Mm.
I've learned you always learn more doing the job than you do reading the book about doing the job.
Definitely.
But that doesn't diminish the importance of continuing to learn and develop professionally. So, acting classes, improv classes, classes on your mental health, you know,
Yeah.
not classes necessarily, but there are mental health classes.
Yeah.
Trying to learn how to manage that. Also, and I would say you don't have to copy other people. Um, you What is being sought after, I would say, in most cases, is what makes you unique. And yeah, there are roles that are just this typecast type of character for sure. But even those characters, those individuals are getting cast in that role because something stood out about them that was unique.
Yes.
It may not be that they're looking for something drastically different from the character, but there's something that person has. And so I think accepting even in getting turned down a lot for auditions, and this was something I had to learn, like, and still am trying to learn, because
Mm-hmm.
there's so many roles that I just thought I was perfect for this. It was like
Right.
I had the life experience of this person, and
Right.
I have the looks of this person, and I have the voice of this person, and I'm perfect for this, and then not
Eh,
get it. And it can be devastating to you. So
yeah.
you have to kind of just take this approach of, because we are submitting online mostly, so like click it and forget it, right? And you have to
Right.
kind of take that approach. And so, but learning to not take those things so personally, I think, is another important thing to learn early on,
Yeah.
because you'll be much happier early on if you understand that you're not perfect for every part. And
Good advice.
it's a hard thing to it's a hard thing to accept, but
Yes.
the sooner you can adopt that, then that's the better off you're
Easier on
going to be.
everything. Yeah. Cool. No, great words of advice, and lots of just really powerful insights in the things that you're sharing, sir. And we do appreciate your time coming on and making this available. We've been trying to set this up for a while, and it's just good that we could finally connect and get it done, and get you a chance to share some of those things that you've experienced, because it's meaningful, and definitely you can tell that it's going to impact some other people when they hear your story. So
Well, I hope so, and it means so much to me. We've had conversations all along over this the time we've known each other, and
yeah,
I love seeing you out doing your work and all the shoots that you're on and traveling around. It's exciting, and so I look forward to seeing you grow as well.
thank you. Appreciate that.
Thanks for having me on.